From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In the NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Who gets to vote in a resort town's election when a huge chunk of the town's homeowners are not full-time residents? And how does it change the equation if many of the homes in the town are owned by private companies rather than individuals? Those are questions that come up occasionally in Colorado resort towns like Aspen or Vail. Leaders in Mountain Village, located above Telluride, are debating those issues. Limited Liability Companies, or LLCs, own hundreds of the homes in Mountain Village. Now the town board is studying whether LLCs should be given a vote on issues like tax increases that go before residents of the town. Some residents are a little uneasy about this policy, which we'll get to in just a moment. Jason Blevins of the Colorado Sun has been following this debate. He's here to unpack the issue and what it says about the tension between residents in Colorado resorts and the tourism businesses that traditionally shape those local economies. Jason, welcome to In the NoCo.
Thanks for having me, Erin.
Let's start with why Mountain Village leaders are considering such an unusual step. I mean, what's the problem they're trying to solve here?
Well, Mountain Village incorporated in 1995. They came out of a sort of a metro district, which metro districts allow non-residents to vote. So when they incorporated into a town, they decided to let non-residents vote. It is the only town in Colorado that allows people who are not residents of Colorado to vote in local elections, municipal elections. So part of the issue in Mountain Village now is that as the community matures and these owners, as most owners do when you own a $10 million plus house or something like that, they have switched over ownership to an LLC or a trust. And when they have done that, they lose their ability to vote as a non-resident individual owner. So the idea is they want to continue to be allowed to vote.
This seems so unusual. Is it unprecedented?
It is very unusual. Now, as a newspaper reporter for more than 25 years, I hate to say they're the only one in the country because there might be a community.
Right.
Delaware has dabbled with this before. Delaware has more businesses, registered businesses than residents. So they have sort of adjusted these kind of rules and allowed possibly some LLCs to vote. But in Colorado, this is indeed unprecedented. This is a time-worn narrative in Colorado where homeowners in downtown Aspen do not get to vote in the local election. And it's part of sort of the trade-off. If you want to own one of your whatever $20 million homes in Aspen, you cannot vote in local elections unless you are a resident.
What I found interesting is your article mentions more than half of the properties in Mountain Village are owned by LLCs or trusts. Could we get a little more specific about what this looks like? When we say an LLC might get to vote, are we talking about a large for-profit company, a corporation?
Yes, LLCs are typically for-profit. And the charter amendment that they are proposing would allow 50% owners. So say two spouses own an LLC, they will both get a vote for one property. Trusts will be allowed to vote if the property is there. And there's some 1,200 plus properties in Mountain Village that are owned by LLCs and 600 plus trusts. So there's a number of new voters that could be added to voter rolls in Mountain Village with this charter amendment.
Well, Jason, I have to bring this up because there's a famous soundbite that comes to mind when reading your story. It's from when Mitt Romney ran for president in 2012. He made a pretty provocative statement.
Corporations are people, my friend.
Corporations are people. The idea that businesses have the same rights as individuals makes some people uncomfortable. I'm wondering if you heard those kind of sentiments in your reporting on this story.
Sure, especially with the idea that businesses can be two people and two votes.
Yeah.
But one of the more interesting things that we've seen across the high country in the Western Slope in these resort towns is this crackdown on short-term rentals, right? A lot of people saying, oh, short-term rentals, they're not community minded. And, these people are trying to treat a home like an asset
Yeah.
and treat our community like an asset. And, they're really driven to make money. And that was, brought up by a couple of locals in Mountain Village at this work session last month when the council really kind of weighed this and took a lot of public input. They said, if you allow these profit motivated LLCs that own short-term rentals, as many as 2 votes, how could that sway the election? What if we have, a giant issue about short-term rentals? Obviously, these profit-motivated LLCs are going to vote a particular way, even if it's not necessarily community-minded. And really across the Western Slope, we've seen these communities say, hey, let's look at residents a little more closely, maybe more than second homeowners, maybe more than even tourists. Like, what can we do to really adjust our communities to better accommodate a residential focus? And that's something that we're seeing across the Western Slope, and how that might play out if you start to allow profit-motivated companies to vote. I think we're going to be able to see that in Mountain Village.
And I know you report so much on the growing pains that resort towns are feeling. It's not even growing anymore. It's just existence pains. I'm curious how this fits in with the context of that.
I think this is something that we're seeing play out across the Western Slope, this resort landscape stuff with this, community focus versus a tourism focus. And it's just the maturation of these ski towns as they kind of mature. We have a growing number of residents in these communities who are saying things like, do we really have to be so tourism focused? And obviously the tourism businesses are saying, yes, we do. We are tourism towns. And the residents who are, maybe these new residents are working from home and they're like, I don't know if we have to be so tourism focused. So as this plays out and as maybe tourism retracts and residents' interests are, brought to the forefront, it's going to be really fascinating to watch.
Jason Blevins of the Colorado Sun, thanks for your reporting on this, and thank you so much for talking with me about it.
Of course, Aaron. Have me anytime.
Jason mentioned this issue is likely to go before Mountain Village voters in June of 2025. You can find a link to Jason's coverage of this issue in the show notes of this episode or at kunc.org. And hey, before we go, we love hearing feedback on the show from listeners like Pete, who recently emailed about our episode on the new LifeSeeker technology that may help search and rescue teams find people faster. Pete said, thanks for today's NOCO presentation on helicopters and cell location of lost souls. I've years in wildland fire and some search and rescue. This is exactly where wildland fire needs to be. This tech is a proven need. And we'd love to hear your thoughts about what we cover on In the NOCO. Should we produce more interviews about politics in mountain towns? Or more conversations with local authors, outdoor adventure? Or is there something else you want to hear more of? Drop us a line and let us know how we're doing. Email noco@kunc.org. That's NOCO@kunc.org. That's it for us today on In the NOCO. I'm Erin O'Toole. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow with more of what's happening in Northern Colorado.